In 2016, Marc and Tricia Leach left a comfortable home in Scottsdale, Arizona to embark on a 6-month journey with their 3 children. Suburban desert comfort turned to efficient togetherness as the family of 5 loaded up in a new travel trailer and set off for their adventure. 7 years later, the 6-month journey continues. The kids are grown and are in college or graduate school, but there's no time for empty nest sadness in the Leach Airstream. That's because along the road, Marc and Tricia drew on their business savvy and natural entrepreneurial skills to turn a simple family journey into one of today's preeminent lifestyle brands. They are recognized for extensive travel and RV content through their Keep Your Daydream YouTube channel, which currently has 490,000 followers and features new content each Sunday. Tricia has also developed her own cooking line featuring custom spices and unique cookbooks, and Marc and Tricia also sell Keep Your Daydream attire and have an affiliate relationship with Amazon that features RV equipment. KYD Insiders represents the many followers of the Leaches that are frequently together for educational and recreational gatherings. And if that's not enough, they also maintain a vacation rental home in Flagstaff, Arizona, and are currently developing another property in Florida. On this video, you'll hear how Marc and Trish approach their family, business, and RV community from a leadership perspective. Their organization is unique, as is their approach, all focused on keeping your daydream. And first of all, thank you again for joining us, to talk about leadership here. And y'all have a very unique organization from an organizational perspective as opposed to an occupational perspective. And it comes down to you have a business or 2 or 3 that you run, and then you also have a group, that you shepherd and you mentor and you help. So talk about the organizational strategy that you have and maybe the structure, if I left anything out or you could expand on anything, how it works and how you got to the point you are now.
Did Tim say strategy? Wait, are we supposed to have a strategy?
Yeah, right.
I will say that we're very fortunate that we're so genuinely focused on our community that the strategy is letting the community lead the way. Mm-hmm. And we've been, I don't even want to say like clever. There's been some things that have been very clever that we look back and go, well, how did that work out so well? And we go back and we say, oh yeah, we made it all about the community. We listened to what they wanted and we tried to remove ourselves as much as we could out of the way. And it worked. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I think strategy is how do you do exactly that? Maybe without.
Sometimes I feel like we come up with a plan, like technically with a business plan, we come up with the business plan before we've had the experience. And one of the coolest things about having a community and the way that we communicate in today's day and age, in today's business world, is we ask community, what would you like from us? What do you enjoy? What's not so great? And they will tell you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Back. And so that's the most beautiful thing, because our viewers and the people that we've been able to come in touch with are just so kind. And they've let us know, we love this, we want you to do this, we want more of that. And so through what Marc has done in his actual companies before KYD is really the Gestalt method. And it's like sharing your experiences.
Right.
And doing it with full transparency and being okay with the outcome. Mm-hmm. That, this is what we did. This is where we goofed up. This is where we succeeded. Mm-hmm. And then we end up getting feedback and we make a connection that's genuine.
Perfect. So a lot of leaders, especially in the current era of leadership, like to talk about servant leadership. Mm-hmm. What does servant leadership mean to y'all?
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Well, in baby step form, it's really giving back. And for us, we always try to like have an element of that. How can we all come together? Because there's so much great energy with our community. So we'll either do community service projects, or we'll give back and go cook for Ronald McDonald House, or, we're just trying to find ways where we can be in touch with each other while we're doing good for the bigger community.
Well, and the other thing is too, is we're going to listen very carefully and see trends within our community. So right now, actually on January 1st, we just launched what's called KYD 55. This is our 55, you're on it. This is our 55-day healthy habit challenge. And the way that this came about is we started receiving, well, we get tens of thousands of emails, but we started to see a trend in emails where someone would say, we've been working for 40 years. We just retired. We've got the RV in the driveway. We've got our house rented, and their health changed. And now they don't know what to do with the RV, and they've got medical bills and things. And we were receiving a lot of these emails.
A lot.
Right. And Tricia and I said, and I think there's something about that. I think there's something about working and giving yourself to a job. And then when people retire, the body might say, hey, my purpose, I'm done. And so I think there's a lot of metaphysics or something. There's a lot of things like mind-body connection in retiring. But so we said we just felt the need, you talk about servant leadership. We felt the need to do something to help people make a bigger priority and establish those healthy habits so that they can pursue what could be the best years of their life.
Yes.
And so that's maybe an example of, a fitness challenge or a healthy habit that is way out of the scope of what we do, but it's just something we felt called to do within our community. And so I think it's just paying attention to those things and then doing what we think is right. And we do it. It's completely free. It's cost us a fortune over the years of website development and video production and copywriting, but it's just something we feel like is worth doing.
Yeah. So I've always heard that you can tell an effective leader by one specific thing, and that's people follow them, right? A lot of people think they're leaders, but they don't have any followers. Y'all have obviously developed a big community of followers in a lot of ways. So what do you think some of the bigger things are that have contributed to that followership?
Well, I think transparency was the key. When we started, we didn't know anything or nothing at all. This whole thing started because we wanted to take a 6-month trip with our kids. Trish had a podcast called Keep Your Daydream, where she was interviewing people that were kind of doing things out of the norm. And then around over 100 episodes, and around episode 65, we realized that the only reason we weren't doing something out of the norm or taking a risk or keeping our daydream is because we had this really big, lofty dream. And so we thought to ourselves, or we had a conversation, what if we were to pare down the dream and make it smaller so that we could do it? And so that's what prompted this 6-month trip. And we thought, well, let's share the trip. And we knew nothing. And so we were making mistakes, and we had flat tires and just, if it could go wrong, it was going wrong. I was breaking the awning in New York.
Yeah.
And I think people were watching it and saying, well, here's some people that don't really mind sharing their mistakes and admitting it. And then the other thing that happened from that is we were able to laugh at those mistakes.
Yes.
Maybe early on because the camera was on.
Yeah.
But over time, I think I've learned to respond how I normally respond on camera.
Yeah, right.
And
but through that, I think we shared a certain message, and it again just came from what we were actually doing, and it was start small, start now. So we had a truck in our driveway, and we're like, we had heard from a friend and partner that you only get 18 summers with your kids. And we have 3 kids, and our oldest daughter was about to go off to college. We had 2 summers left with her. And I said, if we don't do something now, nothing's going to happen. And she's going to go off, and it won't be bad. She had a wonderful childhood. We had a great time with her. She went to all the dances. She did all the stuff, but we didn't do something intentionally.
Yeah.
And so we had this truck, and then we're like, what can we pull with this truck? We can pull this rig. It felt like an apartment building the first time we get down the freeway. But it was really just that little nugget. Like, what can you do with what you have, where you are right now?
So transparent, the answer to your question, transparency. And then I think we had a kind of a clear, identifiable message that people could relate with. And they were asking themselves, well, geez, if they could do this, what could I do? And so I think the combination of those things kind of created the initial momentum.
Perfect. Yeah, you mentioned the kids, so that's a good segue into something I wanted to ask. Based on what y'all have done, how do you think that's informed the way your kids have developed as leaders? I know that there was one particular episode I watched where you talked about how Carson had helped a younger freshman or something at school. That was a very emotional episode.
Yes.
And that showed that he had developed into a real leader. How did what y'all have done inform how your kids have grown into that?
Well, I think that really just taking ownership over their experience. One of the things that when you're traveling in such tight quarters, we really try to make sure that we're touching base on what everybody needs, and they have to be able to express that. So we've always talked to people because they're like, I'm not full time, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. Well, what are you? What do you want to do? And you can carve out your own experience, but you have to be able to communicate that. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed watching our kids grow up is express what they need and what they want. And then we as a family say, what are the big rocks? What do we have to do first? And then we'll fill all the little things in between the empty space.
Well, and the other thing too, I'll add to that is that when we started traveling through the United States, it really opened up the entire United States as an option for us. Whereas prior to the trip, I think our nucleus would have been completely in, Phoenix. Whereas now we've got a son that goes to Embry-Riddle in Daytona after attending a military school in Indiana. Our daughter still lives in Scottsdale, but went to school in LA Film School. And then our son is now going to a school in Virginia in August. And so, and then we've got a place in Florida and Arizona. So these travels have kind of helped open up the possibility that, we don't have to just be all in one spot. We can travel around. And I think that's opened up new experiences, meeting new people, and being open to new possibilities.
Yeah. Awesome. It teaches flexibility for sure. Right.
Totally.
Yeah. So when you, go out on the road, typically, maybe when you started versus now, has there been a change in who typically takes the lead between the two of you?
Well, I know that in the beginning, Mark did everything, like the driving, the hooking up, the everything, because it was just something I wasn't comfortable with. But you grew up with boating and trailering and things like that, and I did not. So, but over time, because I've been exposed, I've been able to do all of that stuff myself. My resume has expanded.
Yes, it has.
Right.
Anyway, especially when you guys just did a bike ride, like bicycles, pedally bikes from Michigan to Florida. And my friend and I both had our RVs, and we followed you guys every day. So we were responsible for all of the elements, and because you guys were extending yourselves on these bikes, doing all the work. So,
but I would say we're also very lucky that we're able to have a business that we can do together.
Yes.
I think we're very lucky that we're able to do that. And so a lot of things have expanded. We focus on the videos together, and Trish is heavily involved in the editing and how things are pieced together in the storyline. So, and then of course, she's got her like best-selling cookbook and spice line. So, we're both working on that and launching a magazine and olive oils in March. So it's fun that we have something that A, we can do for the rest of our lives. B, contributes to people so we can see it makes a difference. And then C, the fact we're just able to do it together. Very lucky.
Right.
Well, and I want to say, because you said for the rest of our lives, and one of the things that we've learned from watching other leaders is that they focus on what they're good at, right? Because you can become like a little bit better at what you're mediocre at, but you can become great at what you're good at if you continue to feed yourself good information. But they have always been able to tell what's happening either with their community and society, what people need in general, and change not the message, but the format. And so as platforms grow and change, being on top of that, I think is so important, really understanding how people want to digest your information, because there's always a new group of people. Like even for us, we see people, I want to go RVing, I got my RV, and we're done. But that's always happening. So we always have to be like, okay, well, what is the net, so to speak? How do we bring people into the fold? Because we know we have something positive to offer, but we have to make sure that we're always on top of, well, how do you want to listen to us? We might have a message, but it's really, how do you want to hear it? So really focusing in on that, I think, is huge as people move into their leadership roles, because it will change and evolve, even though you're still working with your same set of great skills.
Yeah. So as you deal with people in your community, do you find that there are more leader types in that group, or are they typical followers, or how does that work? Do you find a lot of ambition? What's the feedback on that?
Well, I think our RVers in general are very freedom focused. They want to do everything on their terms. They know how to fix things. They know how to go after things. Some people might not like go outside their bubble necessarily, but they feel like, okay, I got this. And so whether we've been able to be fortunate to like give them that confidence, or they had it on their own, that's kind of a common thread with our community.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So in terms of change as it's necessary and developing things as a leader, we all had a great example of what happens when you don't change fast enough with Southwest Airlines,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Which is my favorite airline, by the way.
Yeah, me
I
too.
love them. They'll do well. It's the first stock I ever bought was Southwest
Oh, really?
Airlines.
Oh, that's fun.
I'll
Yeah.
never sell it.
Yeah.
But they kind of got behind the eight ball on a few things. How do you, from a leadership perspective, look at your business and the relationship you have with your community to make sure you don't get behind an eight ball that can cause a meltdown with what you've built so successfully?
Well, as Trish said, platforms change from time to time. People go from, watching YouTube and long format videos to now TikTok coming in and doing short term videos or short format videos. And then Instagram getting on board with that. And then YouTube saying, oh, we want to get involved. And so then we do shorts. And so what happens is all these algorithms change and they start promoting different things. So I think it's important to be cognizant of the algorithms so that you can stay in front of the audience and be reaching new people, but not so focused on the algorithm that you end up losing the core message. We were at a Harvest Host. You probably know what Harvest Host is, but students might not. Harvest Host is an organization where you can camp for free at like a farm or a winery or a museum.
Super fun.
In exchange just for participating and buying different things.
Right.
And so Trish and I were out in Idaho, and we were staying on this farm. And the gentleman was giving me a tour of his greenhouse. And I happened to notice that there was no irrigation in his greenhouse. And I said, there's no irrigation here. How do you water all this? He says, well, that's by design. He says, I could install an irrigation system in here, and then I could be tuned into the irrigation system and not the plants. I would rather be tuned into the plants and know when do the plants need water, when do they not need water, rather than always fussing with an irrigation system. And I thought, how genius is that? Sometimes we get so focused on the algorithm or the platform or the system that we extract ourselves from the closeness that you have with your community or your customer, whomever it is, and then you lose touch. So I think as long as you're able to stay in touch with your customer, the answers will be right in front of you.
But
right.
With that said, with Southwest, because we just received the apology letter, and here are your 50,000 points.
Yeah, nice.
Because we were part of that group that their flights got messed up. So anyway, you're never going to get out of life unscathed.
Yeah.
Because if you are in perfect condition, you didn't try.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're going to mess up. Things aren't going to go your way.
Yeah.
But you have to have integrity. And even that you might mess up. But working on it continuously, saying, okay, well, what am I committed to? Like, we really are committed to our community, our insiders. What do you need? What do you want? You want to meet up? And then when we fall short or we we have a friend that says what is it when you'll never know if you did too much, but you'll always know if you didn't do enough.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, Southwest may have had a blip on the screen, but you and we know that they're a great company.
They're committed.
And they're committed.
Sure.
And they're going to work through the storm. You'll have storms in your life. You just have to be committed to getting through the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned talking to the community about what they, like and want as you look at change. Do you have any other formal or informal process maybe that the two of you use to actually vet things that you want to do and change and try and develop?
I would say personal conversations. So as we travel around the country and we do meetups, we put a lot of stock in the conversations that we have with people one-on-one. It's amazing the types of questions that someone will ask you in a social media setting versus an email versus in person. And I think that, and that's the benefit of Zoom, is that we can see each other, but in person takes that to just one more level where you can.
It's a level of trust.
It's a level of trust. And they know that when they have the person in front of you, it's like, now I'm going to ask you the questions because I'm going to know immediately if you're telling me the truth or not.
Yeah.
And so we get different questions. And so we put a lot of stock in those personal meetings, personal conversations as to how we're going to shift, the business to,
or what people are looking for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why we're even working on a cooking side business, because that's what people wanted. They saw I was cooking and they're like, wait a minute, you're in a little kitchen and you're still creating meals. You're not eating hot dogs. I want more. Tell me more. And then, okay, well, here's a little bit. And no, I want more. Okay, well, here's some spices. No, I want more. I'm like, okay, we'll work on something else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed, and this has nothing to do with leadership, but since you mentioned cooking, I tend to eat better when we're on the road. And I think it's because you cook different than you do at
maybe.
home.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that's something that comes up, and people probably recognize the difference as well.
Yes.
As you talk to people and do things even between the two of you in your conversations, if you have disagreements as leaders, how do you settle that? Either between you, or if you have a disagreement with the group?
Well, I think really focusing on the issue, because when we make something about people, then you're attacking a person. But when you talk about the issue, it's just the issue. So how quickly can you get through it? We call that the dip. And we're like, how do you get from where you are to where you expect it to be quickly when something goes awry? And so when we do that, just in our relationship, and when we've taught our kids that, they like make up funny songs about when they were little. They were like, give them the benefit of the doubt. They made like a whole song about it. So anyway, just as quickly as you can, focus on solving the problem instead of attacking the person. And so we do that even because social media can be harsh sometimes, and we have to make sure that we're shepherding the group in a way where we're keeping it positive, and that's a full-time job. So that's how we have a filter. Are you like trying to work on the problem? Are you trying to work on a solution? Are you being supportive? Because sometimes it can get confusing. Should I call someone out on that? Should I take that message down? Should I let people not agree with me on an Instagram post? Yeah. It's as long as they're being civil, of course.
Sure.
And then I need to respond to that.
But let's talk real quick about the times that we dropped the ball, because we have dropped the ball. We just recently dropped it over Christmas with Christmas spice orders and things of this nature due to a whole bunch of issues with labels and things. When people send an email to us regarding merchandise or spices or cookbook or whatever, and they're angry, interpretation of the anger is important. They're angry because they were excited.
Yes.
Right. They were so excited to buy a product that we offered as to give as a gift. And now it didn't look like it was going to happen. And now they're mad.
We didn't meet their expectations.
But I mean, it's so important. Sometimes I realize, here's someone that was so excited that now they're angry. Their anger is actually equivalent to their excitement. So
it was the pendulum.
It was the pendulum. And if I were to interpret their anger or be reactive and be like, oh, how dare you say that? So our interpretation is, you're this angry because you were this excited and we dropped the ball. So now how do we immediately take responsibility, make it worth your while, and correct it as quickly as possible? And then guess what happens? The pendulum goes back to the excitement and even more some. And in many ways, dropping the ball and recovering gracefully, and not even completely, but at least gracefully, can actually end up with a stronger relationship with your community and customers.
Sure.
Right. Because they know how you behave under pressure.
Yeah. And so I think it's just really important to never be reactive, always be responsive. And if you have to, take a step back and reframe where that anger is even coming from. Make sure it's coming from the right place and solve the real problem.
Or if you have a partner, make sure that you have, if you feel like maybe this is an edgy email back, have them read it, because a different set of eyes without the emotion is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Service recovery is just as important as good service, if not more important in a lot of cases. Yeah. So shifting gears a little bit and going back to the S word strategy. So, but before you can implement a strategy, you really have to have a vision. So looking forward from now, what's the vision for your, we'll call it enterprise, everything that you have? What's your vision for what you want it to become?
Well, I would say personally, our vision is that we're able to work on developing products and programs that we feel have personal meaning, like they bring us some level of satisfaction, that they contribute to other people, and that we can continue to work with each other and live independently with some level of freedom. So in terms of our vision for what we want, that's what we're looking for. And
for the client, customer, person community, on YouTube, whomever, that's just to bring them a smile, because the truth is, there's a lot of information out there that you can absorb. And if you come over to our little corner of the world, we just want you to get a laugh or smile or relax. We want to take out all of the pricklies and just bring in something that's just like calm and fun. Yeah. I don't know if I can use calm to describe our family.
Yeah.
It's just there. So.
Yeah. So many of the students that we have, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, Mark, are returning students that are coming back to finish degrees. What type of advice would you give them, as they've started a new chapter, you know, to fight through the different things that may come up, just like y'all did as you switched gears and did something?
I would say, you know, Tricia and I, prior to doing this, have as Jim Rohn says, we're big fans of Jim Rohn and John Maxwell. And Jim Rohn says, you got to be a serious student. You got to be a serious student of leadership. And as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls based upon leadership. So one of the best quotes that I think Jim Rohn has is, if you want to make a living, you can work on your job. And if you want to make a fortune, you can work on yourself. I think it's important as people are going into the workforce or having a new set of skills to remember that it's still working on yourself that's the most important thing.
And I think to that regard, he also says it's not what you get, it's who you become.
Yeah.
And so it's through this process where you're learning and you're developing, you're creating a framework of how you want to see the world. And when you create that framework of leadership and you know, these are my values, you can make decisions really fast. Things are coming at you at lightning speed and you can just sort through them, and you'll be surprised the more you put in, the faster, quicker, easier it is to make a quality life that you enjoy and you're proud of.
Well, and the other thing I'll say on that is if you're working on yourself and you're not blowing up at work and you're not being reactive, you're being responsive, you're not making excuses, you're really kind of focused in on who do you need to become to get to that next level. There are other people that are paying attention to that.
Yes.
And doors are going to open that a lot of people don't even know these rooms even exist. And once you get to a certain personal development level, you could be a waiter or a waitress and you could be serving somebody and have a CEO of a company that you would never know that they're a CEO of a company, and they'll recognize these behaviors and say, hey, by the way, here's my card, call me. These are behaviors. They're not skills, they're attitudes. And the doors open up to this very small group of people that might not know they even exist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Well, good deal. Thank you again so much for pulling up today to talk about leadership. I know it's going to help the students as they, you know, go out and write their last paper and graduate and move on to new and better things.
Yeah, how exciting.
Thank you very much.
And let me just add how impressed we are with you for inviting us on here to do this. I mean, you know, when you think about the university system, a lot of times, you know, the focus is on principles and time-tested things, because by the time you take a new strategy, identify it, write about it, distribute it into the school system, 5 years goes by. So we said, hey, let me bypass the whole process and just Zoom on a Wednesday and bring people information right now. So kudos to you, and your students are very lucky. Thank
you very much. I thought it was important that the students see, you know, when we talk about leaders, you know, you pull out the Steve Jobs and the Warren Buffett and all those guys that like to do big hand gestures on stage and all that. But there's so many people like yourselves that, you know, people have followed y'all, and that wasn't accidental, right? There were things that happened. There were traits and skills that you had that got you there and got you with those, you know, people following you. So I thought it was important that everybody saw that and heard from you.
Well, I think the key thing that maybe when we were saying that is it Kevin Kelly that used to write for Wired magazine? He was a technology guy.
Yeah, I think so.
He wrote an article once in Wired. I think I read it 15 years ago. And he said most dry cleaners run off about 5,000 customers. And we think about that all the time. Like, who's our real customer base here? And you don't need a major enterprise to have an exceptional life. And so we think about that all the time. You know, how much is it going to cost us to go bigger versus what can we do deliberate and work on products programs that we feel are meaningful, are making a difference, and have an exceptional life without having a lot of the overhead.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great example of one class that the students watching this had to take in the lower levels called process improvement, you know, where they had to go in and look at different processes for different things and talk about, you know, how can it get from A to B, whatever that is, you know, whether it's a bigger organization improvement or what you just said, you know, how much can we spend to get this and still have the life that we want?
Yeah.
You know, it's both. So that's very appropriate. Good deal. Thank you all again very much. I appreciate your time more than you know. Hope if you're ever at Holly Lake Ranch, Texas, you stop by and say hello, and hope to meet you in person someday.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Thanks so much for today. It was fun.
You're welcome. Y'all take care.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.